WYCN's got Cultchah, a weekly program devoted to food and drink in and around Greater Boston. And I'm one lucky host, Carolyn Choate, traveling throughout the region, meeting the most passionate artists and sharing their work with you. New Hampshire restaurateur Chuck Rolacek might not consider himself an artist, but just ask about anyone in the Granite State, and they'll tell you his work is sheer genius. From the iconic C.R. Sparks in Bedford to his masterpiece, Hanover Chop House in Manchester, Chuck Rolacek knows how to create a culinary sensation. You know, Chuck, they say three's the charm. How did you approach CR's conceptually after C.R. Sparks and Hanover Chop House?
That's an interesting question, Carolyn. I think it was C.R. Sparks was such a good experience for me. You know, the restaurant was very successful when it closed in 2010, and I had visions of someday resurrecting it. I just didn't know when, proof by the fact that I, put everything in storage. But I also wanted it to reflect 2014 and maybe dining trends or people's habits and things like that. So there was definitely some thought put into it.
So 4 years went by, but in between I wanted to harken back to the C.R. Sparks era, because I truly think, having lived in that time and frequented it often, it was really a high point and revolution of sorts for the restaurant scene in New Hampshire at the time. I made a list of things that I thought made it so. Independently owned, not a chain, upscale but accessible, superb menu and service, an extensive focus on events, but without that country club or warehouse function feel. To my knowledge, you're not a chef, so where did all those ideas come from when you put C.R. Sparks together?
Well, you'll have to remember, my first opportunity as a business person, after I'd had an experience with the airlines, training flight attendants and writing menus and developing specs back in the 70s and 80s, I really was a caterer. So I wanted to be a caterer first and foremost. But when you're an airline caterer in that era, it would be hard to get a good reputation for people to have their function, their daughter's wedding, an anniversary. So it was a consultant who actually told me, you better open a restaurant to develop a reputation so you could become a good caterer. So that was really the genesis. I wanted to be a caterer, but I needed to be a restaurateur first. So the way I thought to do it was we'd have to be a place that served great food, that was good on service, so we could shirk all those, pundit and late night talk show hosts making jokes about airline food. I mean, Jay Leno
You beat
and
me to the
Letterman,
punch.
no, they did. It wasn't, at times it wasn't very good, but that was the general consensus, and that was for coach food on a Chicago to New York flight. The first class food, Chicago to Honolulu or San Francisco to Hong Kong, was pretty special. So that's where it really came from. So I figured the restaurant really had to come out of the blocks and be unique and make a statement that we can do food and service. So when we did get into our catering business and our function business a few years later, we had the good reputation.
C.R. Sparks was definitely a forward-thinking restaurant.
Michael Buckley of Michael Timothy's Dining Group.
Chuck Rolacek is a very smart operator who's not afraid to go big. So I can remember walking into Sparks, I'm not sure what year did that open, 93, 94. And so we're talking early 90s in southern New Hampshire, walking into Sparks and just being absolutely blown away. Like, wow, am I still in New Hampshire? This is a big city restaurant, and I just didn't expect it to be so well polished and so finished the way it was. I mean, you felt like you were walking into a restaurant in downtown Manhattan or Boston or Los Angeles. So for something like that to open in New Hampshire in the early 90s, it was really cutting edge at the time and well executed. He brought together a great team. Like I said, he's a smart operator. He did everything right. He didn't make any mistakes, and the place obviously was extremely successful. And I think he took that forward to Hanover Street Chop House and now to CR's where he is today. I'm sure he'll be very successful.
I think it would be remiss not to mention at this juncture the fact that also you had a degree from the University of Denver in the hospitality industry.
Yes, I've been in the industry. I've wanted to be the industry my whole life, so I went to school for it. And Denver was really good because Denver gave me a business degree as well as the culinary experience. And, you know, other schools like CIA in Hyde Park, New York, is more for the culinary school. Chris Veach, my chef here and also at CR Sparks, went to New England Culinary Institute up in Vermont. So he learned, you know, his skills in the test kitchen. I learned it in the classroom, and I learned as much about marketing and personnel and business law as I did about hospitality. But it was a pretty good base.
And that, of course, is what you continually hear today about the success or not of the restaurant trade, because let's face it, it's a hard business to be successful at. That it's not just about the passion for food. You know, you have to have the
Absolutely.
business acumen to stay in the game.
It's very challenging, and I mean, I feel sorry. There's many chefs I've run into, feel sorry for the many chefs that, you know, want to open their own restaurant but have no financial means. And it's not like the old days where you can present an idea to your local banker and he'll lend you a couple $100,000 to start a restaurant or a business. So there's a lot of talented people who can't pull it all together. I mean, even my first restaurant was very difficult to kind of get that financing. Little easier, you know, 3 or 4 down the road, but at the same time, it's a challenge, and you really need a good education. If you don't get it from working in the business, you better get it in the classroom at some point.
Within the industry, and after reaching that undeniable rung of success on the ladder, there's often the tendency, and I know you know this, to outdo oneself. The bigger, the better, the more bodacious, and case in point, Hanover Chop House. Sure. Now, people I know who know you have often told me at the time, when you were juggling both, that you said, that's your baby.
I really took that challenge because I thought that it was a bigger challenge than even CR Sparks was, because it was white tablecloth, it was high-end, it was a much smaller, I don't want to say demographic, it was a much smaller space to work with, you know, and the prices were going to be expensive. It was going to be just the cost of meat and shellfish and fine wines was a lot more expensive than the raw ingredients at a CR Sparks. And I really took that because we started out great, Carolyn, and then the '09 recession kind of hit us in the second or third year. We were really up and running, and sales plummeted. People stayed away. It was too expensive. It was deemed stuffy. It was deemed a lot of other not so nice comments. And it took me to put my nose to the grindstone after CR Sparks closed. And for 4 years, basically, we just worked that place so hard. And you know, to the point where we got it back to where it needed to be, and it's a very successful place today.
Rolacek, president of the New Hampshire Restaurant Association from 2007 to 2008, was lauded by current president Jay Lyons, saying Chuck's vision of a comfortable, friendly, yet chic establishment brought the steakhouse concept of the big city to an approachable experience in New Hampshire.
Chuck has been an innovative leader for us all to learn from.
I know we were short Prosecco. We ran through all of it. He was bringing some in, I think.
Okay. So you want me to hold off on that until you get to?
Do Caribbean Christmas?
No.
You did walk away from CR Sparks. First and foremost, or correct me if I'm wrong, you are a businessman. A pretty sweet deal came down the road. Excuse the pun, because it was a Lexus dealership who, as I recall, offered you an opportunity financially to, and as I'm hearing now, the inference that you could concentrate more heavily on the Chop House. Was that an agonizing moment in your restaurant life?
You know, it wasn't, because the intention was I'm going to rebuild across the street. It was almost like it's time to get a new location, and the property, the Wayfair, was up for sale, and I was looking at that as my potential That would replace the event center for functions. I had a little bit of a, tinge to get into the hotel business too, and really incorporate, another facet of hospitality, lodging along with the two food service ends, both functions and restaurant. So I had the intention of taking the check from Lexus and putting a little bit of away for the rainy day, but rebuilding CR Sparks at the Macy's parking lot. And if you remember, that was right around 2009, and actually that's when everything was going down the drain. And I couldn't get a banker to support me or back me, a developer to support
That's pretty
me
hard
or
to
back
believe.
me. And
Knowing your track record.
And I thought moving, an eighth of a mile down the road would be just as successful. People were in the habit of coming there. So I had every intention. It was the recession of 08, 09 that forced me to, let's put all this stuff in storage, let's focus on the chop house, and when the time is right, we'll resurrect CR Sparks. I just didn't think it would be in Hampton.
So when did the day dawn when you likewise decided, I'm ready to resolve myself of the chop house and go on to bigger and better things in my life at that point?
That's an interesting question, because I had some aspirations at one point in my latter years of running CR Sparks. I held so many political events in the function center and in the event center, it was called. And we had, the last 4 presidents have had functions there, an awful lot of other folks at all levels, at the state and at the governor level. I think you did. I think you did. So I was a little enamored by the whole political bug. And there was a part of me that says, why don't you sell the business? Why don't you focus on running for an office within the state? And you'll send the message to people that you really want to take this seriously. You're not going to dabble in it. You're putting your heart and soul into it. And that was really the genesis of selling the restaurant to one of my general managers, Steve Clutter. And then I decided about 6 months later, I'm not sure I want to do politics. And but I'd already sold the restaurant, so I said, okay, new chapter, retirement. But that had like 2 pages in that chapter. It was like, I'm not sure I enjoy this. So it was actually on a vacation down in South Carolina, in which Chris Veach, my chef today, came to visit me. We were playing some golf. There was no indication at the beginning of the round of golf that we were going to do a restaurant.
How many holes, I gotta ask?
It was about 9, so we were into it for a little bit before I brought it up. I'm thinking of doing a restaurant.
Great to see you again.
Was it great when you were on that golf course and he said, come and follow me please to New Hampshire?
Yeah, well, originally the golf, we were going to be in Myrtle Beach. And we talked about Myrtle Beach for at least 1 or 2 trips. And then after 2 or 3 up to New Hampshire, it turned into New Hampshire. So here we are, back together again.
The pizzas, we're ready for some new flavors there. I'm sure we can try a few different things. Our mushroom spinach is also a good one, and maybe a heartier one for the winter.
Over a period of 5 years, we opened up 3 operations together and developed quite a relationship. And Chuck kind of helped move me up a little bit, because he's good at raising the bar.
Does it help that, so oftentimes we see the chef-owned, operated business. Does it help when you don't have to necessarily worry about that end of it?
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's part of why I wanted to get back together with Chuck at this point, because he's got a good track record. I do too, with what I do, and it is. When you open a business and you're by yourself, it's extremely difficult, especially in the restaurant business. So many variables, so many things you're at the mercy of.
French dip, no aioli, and 2 lobster mac and cheese.
You know, it
Yeah.
is. They say it is like a marriage. You know, is he a good partner to be married to?
Hey, everybody's got their quirks. Never kiss and tell.
Darn!
That's my motto.
It's been less than 2 months here.
It's been less than 2 months. Certainly the project, it started back in June. We decided in February of this year, so a lot's happened from February to today.
It's always reinventing itself, this business, and we are truly living in a wireless age, a foodie blog age,
Absolutely.
a millennium age. So how do all these outside forces keep you up at night?
They keep me up at night looking on the various social media sites to ensure that no one had a bad experience, or if they did have a bad experience, that they're not telling the world. You know, 20 years ago when we opened CR Sparks, I did a comment card. I really believed in the comment card in those days because it reminded me of a thing I implemented at the airlines called Note to the Chef. That a flight attendant could literally write a note to the chef of whatever kitchen she flew out of and said, you know, the rolls were a little bit hard, or they didn't enjoy the, you know, lasagna, or we didn't have enough creamers for everybody. So that immediate communication, and back in the day it was more of a company mail. Today it would be, you know,
Instantaneous.
a text or an email, exactly. We eventually got to an 800 line or a hotline that they could call. So I learned from that that was a way to fix problems before they got out of hand. And so I did the comment card in 1994, and it was such a valuable piece of information. I got a little criticism that it was a little Denny's-like, because Denny's used to put the little comment cards, and Friendly's did, along with the crayons and the salt and pepper shaker, as I'm sure you remember, and people would make their comments. But I felt that that was really innovative at the time, and I did it for 20 years. Now today, so when I opened this restaurant, I don't need to do it. People are already commenting. We're doing it, but you know, many people are not writing comments, but they're writing it on OpenTable and on Travel Advisor and Yelp and our own Facebook page and our own website. And it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming for most operators. You almost need a designated person, either in-house, or there's many ad agencies that say they'll
Right.
offer that service and they'll manage your social media account. So it's a different ballgame in that sense. You know, we're still trying to please people. We're still trying to put out a good culinary product. You know, you still have to roll with the punches and be there for, you know, give them what they want. Has been an expression I've used for years. But at the same time, you better be conscious and be able to react to these comments right away.
Last but not least, are you having fun?
I am. I was very energized. I missed the business. You know, I kind of, after I decided to sell, I stayed on at the Chop House for a year, but I had a very limited schedule, and I just tried to make sure it was a smooth transition. But I missed the excitement. I missed the Saturday nights. I missed the writing new menus, the New Year's Eves and the Mother's Days and things like that. So it's been good. It's really been good. And Hampton's been very welcoming. I mean, I think we found a niche here.
Thanks for joining me.
Thank you very much. A pleasure.
CR's restaurant is located at 287 Exeter Road in Hampton, New Hampshire, and is open daily for dinner and Monday through Friday for lunch. I'm Carolyn Choate. Hope you'll tune in again for some more Cultchah.